Hey, what's going on? I'm Illegal Mist, and today we're going to be looking at teams that you can use for Brutal Hydra that involve counterattack champions. Let's get right into it. The first team we're going to look at involves Mithrala, as well as Oella, Uko, and Martyr for our legendaries. And then we have Shamel coming in to help us increase our turn meter because of the Torment Head, and Geo as our main damage dealer. Because we have Mithrala in the team, she'll provide Hex on the enemies, so that way we can deal damage to everyone with the AoE attacks from Geo as well as Uko. We get into the fight, we can kind of talk about it as it goes on. So the main focus of the team, of course, is the counterattack, and I wanted to run it with Mithrala to see how she did as far as being able to provide them with another set of damage. Uko provides us with like long-term damage because of his AoE attacks, and then Martyr can help us break out champions because she's built with 100% crit rate and pretty good crit damage. So Uko is going to be there being able to get the heads consistently hurt and kind of bring them all down at the same level, but Martyr will be able to come in if Geo gets eaten, and she'll be able to provide us with the extra damage to get him or whatever other champions are in the head out. So the nice thing about this team too, we have the cleanse from Mithrala if we do get any debuffs like the heal reduction. But overall, we really like the slot that Mithrala is in is a pretty good flex spot. But the run goes pretty well. We can kind of skip ahead here. We can see get up to 20 mil pretty easily. So we ended up getting to right about 32 mil and our team gets eaten. So after our run with Mithrala, I wanted to run it with someone else like Husk maybe to see how the team would do compared to a team with Mithrala. Okay, so this is the start of the run with Husk instead of Mithrala. And we can see throughout the run, it gets a lot better. One of the benefits that having Husk in as opposed to Mithrala is we get a 2x hitter. So if the Head of Torment hits him, he can counterattack twice. So it gives us a little bit extra turn meter. He has the AoE, which is a enemy max HP, which will help us take down the enemy and get our champions out faster. And he also provides us with the provoke. So this team probably not as sustainable as a team with Mithrala in it, but because we have Husk dealing extra damage, we can help get our champions out faster, which means we do more damage. So if we skip ahead a little, we can see we're doing pretty well. Turn 46, we've got 16 mil done to the enemy. Oella's about to get eaten. We end up killing the Head of Torment right before she gets eaten. Head of Wrath eats her. And then I wasn't able to target the Head of Wrath with Geo before he used his HP burn, which is pretty unfortunate because he also used it on the head that was already dead. But we get her out super quick, which is really nice. And yeah, the team is just, they're able to pump out quite a bit of damage on all of the heads. So the Geo is nice because if they do get the Poison Cloud up, Geo can come in and still place the HP burns on the enemy. Yeah, so we can go through this run a little bit more and see we hit that one key and we end up doing pretty well. Right here, I think, is where we get unlucky. Yeah, so they end up getting the cleanse on the Head of Torment because he had one turn left on his move as well as the Brimstone. So he would have procced Brimstone, and then they also put the shield up. So a double whammy. So we get pretty unlucky. The run ends a little bit earlier than it probably needed to. But if we keep going through, the team ends up doing pretty decently, and the team does right under 40 million, so pretty good. We can see Geomancer pumped out even more damage than the last time, which is nice. Our Husk comes in with 10 mil, Uko comes in with 7.5, so it might have been a couple extra Brimstone procs for Uko, which is nice. Martyr dealing almost 4 mil, which is cool as well. And again, Oella, she doesn't look like she's doing a whole lot, but you know, she's providing a lot of heals for the team, the turn meter increase, and then the extra turn on the counterattack for the AoE champions is really nice. So instead of using Oella, I wanted to see how the team would do with a champion like Nekmo. I think the biggest draw to Nekmo is the fact that he gives us the turn meter as well as an extra turn, and he places leech and AoE decrease speed. So they have similar kits, but we can kind of compare the big differences between them. So we can see, again, we get the counterattacks on everyone. One of the positives is my Nekmo is built in pretty insane relentless gear. I think he's close to 290 speed, which is awesome. But what ends up happening is we don't have that increased resistance on our champions, and we get the provoke debuff on us quite a bit more often than when we have Oella, which isn't a huge deal because we can kind of just, you know, get through our abilities and be fine. But it ends up happening where the provokes go on the champions, they have poisons, and then they get things like heal reduction, and because we're not able to resist any of those things naturally, we either have to bring in extra resistance on our champions, like our Husks, who we probably don't want to because we need so many stats on them anyway, or our champions are just kind of left to die or have much less survivability chances. So we have our Husk go down, but it's not a huge deal because Uko can come in and provide us with the revive. Like I said, this was all full auto, so all I did at most was target the head that ate our champion. So I just let Uko kind of go in. Whenever his revive is ready, he'll use it. The team ends up doing pretty well, and we can see we get through. They get pretty high up there. Like I said before, a lot of the poisons land, they get weakened on us, and our team loses Martyr here. We end up getting her out, I think. So it's not a huge deal, but we're coming towards the end already on this run, and we can see the fatal flaw with this team, like I said, where we end up getting too many debuffs on us, and we're not able to cycle back through or have that increased resistance. So the Head of Wrath comes, he's got the Poison Cloud on him. He hits us with a big smack. A couple of our champions are provoked. We get the poisons on us now, so things are looking pretty grim. And the leech isn't going to heal us as much as it would with Oella's heal, which I think is probably one of the biggest issues. And then our champions go down. We need Uko to get back to his revive, and he's just not able to. So the run kind of falls flat on its face, when in reality, like, you know, if you were doing it on manual, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. But because it's on auto, the run kind of just dies really quickly. So we can see our Nekmo comes in. He does 5.8 mil damage. Uko does significantly less with only 2.2 mil. Martyr comes in just about 3 mil. Geo with that 9.1 mil. Husk with 7.5 mil. So the champions come in. Overall, everyone else is doing less damage than they were previously, and Nekmo is kind of picking up a lot of the slack there. But we can see the main flaws with Nekmo, where we're kind of cycling him so fast that he doesn't keep the counterattack, and if Nekmo doesn't have counterattack, then it's not super beneficial. But when our other champions lose it, it's even worse. They do very, very similar roles, but I think the way this team is structured, Oella is actually more beneficial than Nekmo, which I found pretty surprising. I thought Nekmo actually would give us, you know, similar results to her. So I went in and I ran a couple more with him to see how they did. So here we have another run, same thing. I went in, made sure, you know, I would try and target heads if I saw that a champion was devoured, but otherwise I just left it as is. And the team goes in. This time we get 28 mil, and we can see very, very similar thing happens again, where, you know, our champions are all pretty low. We've got leech on a couple of the enemy, but Uko goes down this time, and then, you know, we don't have a way to sustain, to stay alive. Our champions lose their increased defense as well, the one that Martyr puts up, so it makes it more difficult for them all to live. And then Head of Wrath comes in, smacks us, and right over that 30 mil mark, we only have 2 champions left. It's just Nekmo once again, and they take us out. So we can see again this time, probably more Brimstone procs from Uko than Nekmo. So he's got a little bit more damage than he did last time. But yeah, generally same sorts of damage numbers from the other 4 champions. So we can see again, Nekmo's coming in. He provides so much for your team in Hydra, but when you have a team built for counterattack, it might not be super beneficial to have Nekmo built the way I do, which is fast and relentless, because he'll outrun the buffs, and a champion like Oella provides us with a little bit more for this sort of specific team. So I wanted to compare champions like Nekmo and Oella directly, as well as champions like Sicia and Geo. So for this run, I have Oella instead of Nekmo, and then I have Sicia instead of Geo. We can see the run goes pretty smoothly, no major issues. Unfortunately, we didn't get the provoke, so they get the cleanse, but we can kind of skip through the run for the most part. You can see the majority of the time they either are all fully burned or none of them are burned, based on if we land the provoke or not on the Head of Decay. We get up to right about the 24 million mark and we struggle. Uko goes down and the run kind of fails there. So we end up doing 25 mil, and we can see again, Sicia does just about 10 mil, Martyr 3.1, Uko 4.3, Husk 6.3. So he did a little bit less than you would expect. And if we bring in Nekmo on this same team, we can see we go through, get the run, getting close to that 20 mil mark, and then we run into some issues where the team just doesn't have enough sustainability. So funnily enough, it's actually less friendly for us to use Sicia than it is Geo, and then also less friendly to use Nekmo instead of Oella. And the reason being, Nekmo goes in, he doesn't provide you with the heals like Oella does, so the team is more susceptible to die. And with Sicia, we're gonna place the HP burns on every enemy, but the issue that we run into is the fact that she'll get an extra turn if she ends up placing all of the HP burns. So she'll go twice, she'll lose her increased defense as well as the counterattack buff, so she's not providing providing us with as much damage. And even though he's seen as a typically less auto-friendly champion compared to Sicia, because we're running the counterattack team, the Sicia actually struggles more than the Geo does, which is pretty interesting. And then Oella, of course, is a better champion than Nekmo Run when it comes to the counterattack teams, primarily because she gives us the increased duration of buffs, which helps us keep the counterattack up for longer, as well as providing us with the instant heals instead of Nekmo's leech, which will heal us for the damage that we do. Okay, so I ended up trying this team out. I have Nekmo and Oella, and the replacement for these two was actually the role that Husk or Mithrala was in originally. And I also swapped out Geo for Sicia so that we could try a team. Hopefully it's a little more full auto. So we go in, boom, we hit the 20 mil mark. We're up now. We're up to the 26 mil mark, and we can see team's looking pretty good. Issue is, though, we have the Head of Mischief that has our champion, and we can't totally hit him. I wasn't even around for this, so I wasn't targeting any of the heads, so it was completely full auto, which is nice. But Sicia comes in, we lose the Nekmo, and the run starts to fall apart a little bit. So slowly but surely, the run ends up falling apart just under that 1 key mark for Brutal, which is pretty unfortunate. But we can see Nekmo comes in, he does a lot more damage this time, and I think it's because we're getting that extra turn meter fill from the Oella as well. And then Sicia comes in instead of Geo, she's doing 11 mil. But yeah, Martyr, we can see here, she's doing a lot more damage than she was in just the Oella and the Nekmo teams. So that's really nice. But yeah, it falls just short, but in reality, we didn't target anything. It was full auto, so if we ran it again, it would probably do more damage. And just for simplicity's sake, I ended up running this team again to see how consistent it was. We can go in, we'll skip pretty much all of the run now. We can see we get that 29.31 mil, so just under the 1 key for Brutal, which is pretty unfortunate. Still not as good as we did with just the Oella or just the Nekmo. So the two increasing the turn meter does a lot, but because we aren't able to cycle back and get extra attacks from the other champion that would be in that slot for either Nekmo or Oella, we're struggling. And then Sicia does about the same amount of damage, but it's different because Geo has the potential to help get champions out extremely fast. So there you guys have it for the teams that I tried out and the champions that I wanted to use on Brutal Hydra with counterattack specific type champions. Now we can see Geo comes in and provides us with a lot of utility compared to Sicia, and Oella is able to give us more for our team than we get when we use a champion just like Nekmo Run. And there's some small nuances, but we could see that the damage difference was pretty significant. So if we were to use a champion like Nekmo Run and Sicia instead of using Geo and Oella, it can be the difference of about 10 to 12 million damage difference. And again, these are full auto teams that we're using, so you can go in, pretty reliably get it on your first try, and then not have to worry about Hydra again. A lot of people ask me why I decide to use counterattack teams, and I think the realistic answer is because it provides me with more flexibility. If I'm able to come in with a team that's able to get a 1 key on Nightmare with counterattack champions, that frees up other champions like Husk that would normally come in and be my damage dealers so that I can use them for my Brutal team. Other champions like my Nekmo Run, I can save for my Brutal team instead because I bring in a champion like Oella who provides me with similar utility. And then all of the champions that I use for my Brutal team, not only do I have more flexibility with them, but the ones that I don't use can then go into my normal or hard team. So the counterattack style teams come in, they provide us with great utility for being able to take down the Nightmare Hydra, but it also uses different champions that opens up other options for the lower difficulties, so that way I have an easier time with completely full auto teams. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it provides some utility and helps you guys decide whether you want to use a counterattack team or not. For myself, I found it extremely fun and rewarding to be able to go in and create a team from scratch so that I can use it for any sort of difficulty on Hydra. If you guys have any suggestions on other champions that I should try and use in counterattack teams, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll try and build and book them during CVC. Champions like Anchorite I might try and build up and see how they do because they have AoE abilities as well as provide me with other utility. I can go in and increase the duration of my buffs with him, as well as give myself increased crit rate and crit damage, so it might help my teams that are on Brutal so that I don't have to bring in other champions that I typically would need to. That's all I've got in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys decide to make your own counterattack teams. Let me know what champions you're using for your own teams, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.